Hello everyone, welcome to this new video series where I'm going to be going over what in my point of view is the best board you can climb on. So how it will work is I will be rating the moon board, the Kilterboard, the tension board 1 and the tension board 2 all separately. I will make one video for each board, rating every single variant of the boards that they have. I will rate it a specific number, and at the end of the series, I will be concluding which board, in my opinion, is probably the best board to climb on. I am still in the middle of a other rating series, but because I got injured and the physio gave me the advice to not climb for 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing this rating series instead for the time being, and there will also be some other videos as well on the channel for a while, so there will be 3 or 4 separate videos. It would definitely be appreciated if also some of you guys that are watching the video would also comment some stuff of boards that are also out there that are quite popular besides the Kilterboard, Moonboard and the tension board, so I could also rate those boards because right now I only know these boards. So yeah, let's go into our first board, the original Kilterboard. In my opinion, the Kilterboard is probably one of my favorites. I have climbed on the Kilterboard since I was 13 years old, and I always really liked it because, for starters, the holds on the Kilterboard are really good. Sometimes they do feel a little bit too good. There are some quite bad holds on the Kilterboard, but a lot of the holds on the Kilterboard are quite frankly jugs. Going into problem number 2 is definitely like the difference between setting on the 40 degrees and the 50 degrees. Like the 50 degrees, usually the boulders tend to go more into like the power kind of like style, while on the 40 degrees I feel like it's usually like one big move or 2 big moves, and then you can basically like do the whole boulder. I feel like the 40 degrees is morely going towards like beginners or people that really love to do like these really big moves. I feel like a big difference between the 50 degrees and the 40 degrees is also the length. I feel like a lot of the 40 degrees moves are quietly focused on like being quite long, doing these really quite far moves on the 40 degrees, while on the 50 degrees the moves tend to be like a lot like shorter apart, but just like quite a lot more powerful and harder. Also, a lot of like the videos and clips I see online are usually like people climbing 8A pluses and stuff on the 50 degrees. You don't really see like a lot of really hard boulders from like 8As and 8A pluses uploaded from the 40 degrees, which also like boosts this answer up as well a little bit. Two things that I'm not really agreeing with is first of all having Kilterboard benchmarks. I'm not really a big fan of this because there's a lot of people setting these really cool boulders, and if there is going to be like these benchmarks from the Kilterboard and you can like put them on, I feel like those climbs won't be really like climbed or tried that much. Like that problem is definitely like a thing on the moonboard because everyone really like focuses on trying these benchmarks, while there are really nice and really cool boulders that are not benchmarks that are also on there, and I think having that on the Kilterboard will stop people from trying those really cool like hidden gems, and they will basically like only focus on the benchmarks because those are the benchmarks and so the real boulders, even though benchmarks are still like opinions from other people that say that it is the closest to like the real grade, but alright. And so coming into the second thing that I'm not agreeing with is that the Kilterboard is only focused on big moves and just soft, because it's not the case at all. If you haven't climbed like the most repeated boulders on the board, you will see that not every single boulder is based on one really big move. I think a lot of this is basically talking about like the 40 degrees. Well, on the 50 degrees you have really much like really hard power boulders. You also have like some of those boulders on the 40 degrees too, but those are usually like really long boulders, like Miami Vice Grip, the notorious long boulder that Max Lippo did a few weeks back in one of his videos. And of course there's also some other boulders on the 40 degrees that are quite long, that I don't really know the name of, but there's like a lot of boulders that are really like powerful and long and don't really feature one move or big moves like everyone says, because like there's so much boulders that just feature really powerful moves that don't even have like really like big moves at all. Like this boulder right here, it doesn't really have like a lot of big moves. I think the only big move here on this boulder was basically like the ending, which I didn't even had to do like a really big move too for that. Which like this further concludes that a lot of people that say that the Kilterboard has only like big moves and it's just quite easy, just only really like, you know, climb on the moonboard, or don't really like, you know, climb a lot of like the really hard, like not that much ascended boulders on the Kilterboard, and usually just like, you know, try the boulders with the most ascents and that are like the most popular. And yes, those are usually the boulders that have these really big and long moves, and you know, those are usually like the boulders that people are talking about. This boulder that I'm showing you guys right now is a really good example for like a boulder like that. This one I think at like 900 ascents or something, and it was like a 7C plus. Like boulders like this are the boulders that people are talking about, because you usually never see people trying the boulders that have 6 ascents, because yes, those aren't really tried that much. So I think saying this is just like not really knowing what you're talking about, having only like climbed on the moonboard and basically like having done some of like the most repeated boulders, and then saying that the boulders are like only having really big moves, because that's basically what the people do when it comes to kilterboarding. And I see this so much. I see like so much people in the gym saying that it's super soft, that it's not great. That's also because a lot of the people are trying the easiest boulders on the kilterboard, because basically the boulders with the most ascents are basically like the easiest boulders on the kilterboard for that specific weight. The kilterboard is so big and a lot of people try these really ascended climbs, and then when it comes to the really hard ones, like the really hard ones that even like Worldcup class climbers struggle on, usually people just like intend to skip that or skip a lot of these really hard boulders because they know they can't ever like do those boulders, or they just really don't want to, you know, do these really hard moves, so they just intend to go to the easier boulders. And so you have people saying this because they have tried a lot of the really easy boulders, because not every single super easy boulder is like only like marked as, you know, having the most ascents, but a lot of the easier boulders are also, you know, boulders that don't really always have like a lot of ascents, but you know, are just like, you know, set by people that maybe set some easier climbs than others. Probably the biggest thing that I irritate the most about is how people tend to just like, you know, shit on the kilterboard because, oh well, there's this one really easy climb, so yeah, because I've done that climb, it's like, you know, the easiest board ever and the grades doesn't make any sense. I think a lot of people just really have to climb more on the kilterboard than just like, you know, saying that because you have tried maybe 5 climbs with 1000 ascents. I've seen a lot of competition kids also doing this, saying that it's like a 7A while they try a 7C plus and can't even like do the whole boulder. Like, why even saying it on this point? Like, but yeah, those weren't really like super strong people. Like, they were like some kids from like the you know, youth training somewhere in like the gym. I tend to think that the moonboarders are usually like the people that you know, are grade chasing much more than the people on the kilterboard. If I look at national climbs, because I've been a national climber for a few years now, and I tend to look at, you know, our Dutch champion and some of the World Cup climbers. I see a much different mindset, because usually those people aren't really like, you know, grade chasing that much, but are usually like climbing to you know, build more power and learn different weird moves. that they can maybe use also outdoors, but also in the competition. People on the Kilterboard tend to be more using the Kilterboard to just like, climb really hard, train really hard, while the moonboarders are usually the people that just really want to train finger strength, so they could like, do really hard stuff outside. And those are usually also the people that just like, only do these benchmarks because those are the classics and are like the real boulders in their mind, while the Kilterboard has just a lot more like different kind of like boulders and has just like a lot of like climbs from other people that maybe don't always, are super great accurate. But that's basically how the Kilterboard works, because the Kilterboard is just like the sport that's really like meant to be like a board where you can really train on, and nothing really more than that. Some really good things about the Kilterboard are definitely like, the amount of people climbing on the board. There are like so many like new boulders every single day. You basically never really get tired of trying boulders. You also have these really nice different like kind of boulders. You have campus boulders, roots, and really nice power boulders and dynamic boulders. Like there's so many boulder problems, like you can definitely like find some weird boulder problems. Like this one was quite weird, but I for some reason did manage to flash it a few months back. But yeah, like you have so many options. You can basically like, try like any boulder you want, and you can really like easily scroll to another boulder if one is too hard or too weird for you. What I also really like about the Kilterboard is that the holds aren't like super sharp and only like crimpy like on the moonboard, but are much more finger friendly. What I also really like about the Kilterboard is that you have a lot of boulders with a lot of different betas and cool moves. You never really get tired because there's a lot of new boulders every time. It's really fun to climb the Kilterboard boulders because you never know what new boulder they have been, or like people have been cooking up, I do have two other problems with the Kilterboard. One being that a lot of the boulders on the Kilterboard have like a copy to them. So you have like a lot of boulders that are basically like a copied version of a other boulder that has basically like been put it online, that maybe like have one different move, but it's basically like the same boulder. I think this is, not really that nice, because then you basically have like a boulder that's basically like the same boulder that you have like done, and you basically have to do that all over again, but then with like one move that doesn't even make the boulder harder whatsoever. I think this ruins the fun a lot for me when climbing on the Kilterboard. And at last we have the problem of the new Kilterboard app. Basically almost every single boulder that was first on the Kilterboard has been gone, and a lot of people that climbed on the Kilterboard and set a lot of really nice boulders now have to put their climbs back on, which a lot of people still didn't do. And there's also like a lot of like stuff that I really don't like about the app too, like the grading now. It's basically like two grades somewhere like between one and another. I'm not really a big fan of, not knowing what the grade actually is, but having like two grades and it's somewhere in between. I think this ruins the, knowing what grade you're really climbing, because right now it's just like, one of these two grades you're climbing, and I think that's just like really messy, and it also feels a little bit messy. So yeah, I don't really like that much. By the way, this clip right here is from my friend. I thought it was maybe fun to let you guys see a boulder from him from America. Something that I also don't really like about the app right now is how it sometimes crashes, and when going into the app again, that you have to put or like click on the Kilterboard you want to climb on from your country. So you basically have to like search for your Kilterboard. I don't really like that much. I liked it when the Kilterboard just like knew what Kilterboard you were climbing on and just stayed like on that Kilterboard. I think it was much easier, because right now I just have to like constantly change, search for my Kilterboard that I want to climb on in the gym that I am climbing in on that moment. luckily a lot of the problems have been resolved right now, like the crashings. There's like almost no crashings really on the app anymore. But something that I don't really like is that they now also kind of like, you know, starting having like benchmarks on the Kilterboard. Like there's a few boulders that have like these benchmarks now, or like the Kilterboard logo on them. And you know, when you log in into the Kilterboard app, those are basically like the very first boulders you see if you didn't, you know, apply filters. These boulders with like this Kilterboard benchmark on them are also right now the only like, you know, verified climbs on like the Kilterboard apps. So this means that if you want to climb by 7C, that there are basically like only 3 7Cs right now on the 40 degrees. For 7C plus, there isn't even like a board on the 40 degree yet that is like verified and has like a lot of ascents. For 8A there's basically like one boulder, and for 8A plus also, and like basically like the rest of the 8As and the 8A plus that were on this board are basically like gone and just like faded away into oblivion. So yeah, that's I think like the biggest thing with like this board right now that I really don't like about it. Oh yeah, let's rate the Kilterboard original. Yeah, I'm probably gonna rate it like a B tier. Even though it's the very first board that I climbed on, I definitely think this is quite a decent, really quite well good board to train on. It's good to train power on, it's good to train really weird moves on, and it definitely has like this more competition style kind of like setting also on this board. But it's really inconsistent, like, you know, you have a lot of really soft climbs and then you have like a few really hard climbs. I definitely think that they should like make a like kind of like a playlist of like quite easy climbs and just like really hard climbs. I do think they should just like, you know, keep the benchmarks just away from the Kilterboard. I do think that kind of like, you know, wounds the Kilterboard a little bit. And like I feel like a lot of the holds are quite repetitive. You don't really have like really bad holds. Like you usually just have like a lot of chugs. The holds also look the same, which could be sometimes a little bit boring. And like a lot of the boulders are focused on just like some pretty hard moves, like 1 or 2 pretty hard moves. And definitely like climbing this really like hard high grades. I feel like a lot of like, you know, the most ascended boulders or like the classic boulders on the Kilterboard are kind of like a giveaway boulder, kind of like giveaway boulders. The most ascended climbs are definitely like giveaway. Candy Shop and Hammer Drop both, even though they are quite hard. I do think that if you are like, if you climb like somewhat like 7B in a gym, you can basically like do those climbs. I think this sport is quite inconsistent, and for me, I don't think this is like, it's definitely like a really good board to train on, but I don't think it's gonna be my ideal board to climb on. So I'm gonna leave it here at B tier. So yeah, now for the Kilterboard Home Edition, I don't have a lot of footage of climbing on this board. I think like I had one clip of like a 7A that I tried on that board, but it's gone for some reason. Like last time I climbed on this board, I basically only did one 7A and one 7A plus, and I tried like a 7B and I just got like completely cooked on it. I think this board is too hard. It isn't really like friendly for your fingers at all. It feels like when I climbed on it, it was even more crimpier than like, you know, the moonboard. So I'm going to rate it, I think, C tier. I do really like the holds. It's more like a outdoorsy kind of like board. Trains really well for like, I think, Switzerland and stuff like that. But damn, it's just like super crimpy. You're basically like done in like maybe like an hour. I think it's really good to train finger strength with, but I think it's also a board that can easily, you know, cause some pulley injuries. And there's also like, you know, I feel like the board is just like not super big and has these really bad holds, like too bad of like holds. I think they could maybe like use some, like a few much more like better holds on the board, And there's also like not really like a lot of super hard climbs. Like there's like basically like the boulders only like go until like 7C plus, I think. At least like last time I checked. And you know, you can't really like project on the board after you have basically like done most of the climbs, because there aren't really like super much climbs on the Kilterboard Home Edition. So yeah, for me it's just going to be like high and C tier. I don't think it's F tier at all, but I think it's just like a board that I don't really climb a lot on. I think it's really nice to have a board like this one for people that are much more a fan of like, you know, training for outdoors, see like kind of climbing, definitely for like people that really want to climb hard in Switzerland. But for me it just feels like a board that just is like made to ruin you know, dreams, and to basically like be a, like, it feels for me like the sport really wants to be, is kind of like a moonboard 2.0, but like it feels so much harder than like a moonboard, because on the moonboard I like on the moonboard 2019 I had like done 3 7Cs, and I could like definitely like do at least 1 7A a day, while on this board I basically like felt like I couldn't do like 7A properly, because it just all felt like super hard. The grading on this Kilterboard feels too sandbagged and just feels really inconsistent. Having like 7As that feel really hard, like much harder than maybe like some other 7As or 7A pluses. Yeah, I think it's just like a board that exists, but it's not really my favorite at all. I probably wouldn't really recommend it into only if you really like, you know, like crimping a lot. It also doesn't really have like a lot of competition style kind of like moves, so for me it's going to be like high-end C tier, I think. So this was it for the video today. Yeah, these were all of the Kilterboards that I rated so far, or at least as far as I know. So yeah, please let me know what you guys think about my rating on the Kilterboards, but I think it's well, I think it's quite accurate. Um, and yeah, I think the next video will be the moonboards that I will be rating. And I hope then I can climb again, and then I'm probably going to get more footage for the tension boards review. And then I think I'm gonna rate the climbing gyms again. There's also some other boards that I maybe also want to rate, but I don't know. Some of these boards are in the Netherlands. Please let me know which boards I should also rate besides the moon board, the kilter board, and the tension board. So I can maybe like see if those boards are also in the Netherlands, and I can maybe like rate them still. So yeah, I think this was it for today. I hope you guys liked the video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!